Hello and welcome back to the Fullerton College Pre-Press class. This is Professor Ben Kewitt, and today we are going to assemble our product photography desktop table tents. This is a more engineered version of an item that I used to have to create on my own at previous jobs. It is not necessarily, and oftentimes should not be, the job of a pre-press operator or technician, specialist. I still don't have a good name for that, despite being that for a decade. But anyways, it's not pre-press's job to take product photos. And yet, I have found myself more oftentimes than I can count or even remember needing to take pictures of product for catalogs I was helping clients with. I also use one in my spare time for my hobbies and photographing small things that I like to paint. Models mostly. Anyways, the ones that I originally made were cut out of cardboard boxes, but this one is made out of foam board. Foam board is a material that most people overlook as a cheap disposable material used for science fair projects in elementary school, but it's actually a very durable, very versatile industrial product that's capable of a lot of interesting things. From pop-up and point-of-purchase displays in stores to flying remote control airplane models, both of which I've made out of it. I really like foam board. My engineer brother always says that the strength of foam board is in fact the two pieces of paper, and the foam in the middle is really just there to add rigidity and spacing between those papers. Anyways, you essentially have cardstock, cardstock with a styrofoam middle piece. Pardon my focus, sorry guys. So let's open this up and take a look at what we've made here. I've made it so it can be folded into a much smaller space. Fully open, our light tent looks like a large L-shaped Tetris piece made out of 4 blocks. Now there's a side where the knife on the plotter cut it out, and there's a side where it did not. I'm going to call the cut side the front, and the folding side, or I shouldn't have gotten there yet. Haggard moment, sorry. Anyways, the side where the cutting happened is, I'm considering the front side. I'll turn this over to show you the front side. You can see the creases, the cuts are deeper on here. This is the front side of the tent, and the back side is the side that was face down on the plotter table. The first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to want to punch out, and pardon me, I pre-punched this one. I'll do another one to show you the right amount of effort. Punch out the middle of these panels. You'll get a wasted square of about 1 foot of foam board. That's yours to keep for free. It's a bonus. In the middle of each of these 3 panels, you can hear it kind of cracking, you can just push to break the last little bit of resistance of the few tabs of paper that I left on there to hold it in place, and it should pop out cleanly. So again, gentle, just thumb pressure. You don't want to crease anything that doesn't want to be creased, and you pop these pieces out. Now you can see, and I gave you this nice gray paper background on my table here to make it more visible, that it's got a lot of holes. Across these, we're going to stretch pieces of tissue paper to help soften the light and spread it out a bit. Kind of like the proper nylon photo tents do if you buy a proper one. Anyways, next thing to do on our assembly here is to crack all the sides of these double parallel lines. These parallel lines for the folds are there so that you can fold this and assemble it, but also fold it to put it back away. If you take to an edge of the table, you can use the sharp edge of a table surface to give you a clean break along all of those. You want that middle strip to be, independent of both sides. If you're quiet, you can hear it rip a little when you do that. Let me try a different one so you can hear. I won't talk over this one. And you want to fold both sides of all of these partial cuts. These cuts make use of the materiality of foam board, and they cut only through one layer of paper and through the styrofoam in between, but not the paper backing. This gives you the ability to leave the other piece of paper on the backside as a hinge. Let me show you what the next part is. The next thing we need to do to our photo tent is to remove those middle strips of foam board between the panels. That's going to allow it to fold the correct way. To do this, I'm going to use one of my favorite tools for not proper use, which is at least in this case, a small Phillips head screwdriver. This will let you scrape out pieces you don't want, but it's not sharp enough to really damage the paper. So now I'm going to come in here, and you can try actually, if you want to be careful with it, to get in there and help leverage out the foam board. You can kind of see my strokes here are to the side, trying to break the foam off that other piece of paper. You can also rip it out, but when you do that, you end up peeling the top paper off and that foam is still inside. If that's your route, you can then take the screwdriver to kind of gently go between the paper and the other side of the foam. Let me come around to the other side of my little table here in the kitchen. So this is a way of getting that out. You can also come from the sides and kind of scoop. That sort of works. There are many methods to this. Unfortunately, this is better foam board than I'm used to working with. If you use the Dollar Tree foam board made by Ready Board, the paper comes off really easy from the foam. The bonding's not as strong. This is a nicer foam board meant for display purposes, and the glue's a little bit better. And in that case, that actually hurts us. Although the thicker paper will be nicer for a more durable product. So what this has now done is, and I can come through and actually score this a little bit more, kind of just make sure I'm scraping. See, I put the flat of the screwdriver down against it and pull across to pull the last few bits of foam out. Those of you with good measurement judgment might notice that the gap that I've created between these two panels is as close to the width of, or the depth of the foam board as I could manage. What that's going to allow us to do is wrap this joint around so that that extra piece of paper covers the edge there. That makes us a very nice edge, which is using the paper itself of the foam board as a hinge where the paper will bend and crease around the outside edge. So we need to do this 2 more times. Let's see if I can do it without yakking at you so hard. So you can just see it a few more times of what we're doing. Let me turn this around actually. So we'll come in under, we'll try to break it out. That's a good snap. Sure, the top peels off all nice. Then we want to come under and, ooh, this one's coming out real nice and easy. Just kind of wedge it underneath and remove that strip of foam, because we don't need the foam under there. I can come back and clean it out a little with that screwdriver again. Flatheads are really nice, but there are other tools you could use for this. Once more time for the last one here. You turn it so it's in the right direction of what we're doing. So I'll come in, again, I like to start by breaking it laterally from the side to get underneath. Now, oops, good, I made the mistake that some of you might make. I accidentally went too hard and it did actually force the screwdriver through. You can see on the back here now, I've accidentally gone through and put holes. But that is why we have tape. We're going to be using plenty of tape in our construction anyways, we'll just make sure we cover that to keep it safe. Now I'll put this blade, the head of the screwdriver down under, and carefully bring it towards you to pop that all out. You see it was a pretty clean cut, but it still left a little bit of scuzz. So I'll go back and gently, at an angle that's not going to let it pierce, scrape the surface off. There we go. So now the overall construction of this can be seen. You might also notice, by the way, again, those of you with keen size perception will realize that this one gap here is in fact twice the size of the others. That is not the best structural answer, but it was my way of making it capable of folding the other direction. That double-sized gap means that we can fold, when this thing is not in use, we can fold the sides back and fold it over, and the whole thing will stack flat. You're welcome. Otherwise, you'd have to store the whole giant thing. Part of the brilliance of the folding table tents, especially the nicely manufactured ones, not necessarily this one, is that you can fold them smaller and store them flat and not need to have a giant cube laying around when you're not taking pictures. When this gets assembled, it will be built like this. The cut holes will be on the sides and the top, and the back wall will be solid. we'll get into how to attach these in a minute, because I've actually engineered a way of doing this that is sturdy but temporary, so it'll act in effect like Velcro, although I'm going to be using tapes to do it. Now let's take a look at how to build a closing device that will hold this in place and keep it sturdy for actual use. So we open this back up. First off, we can see right here, kind of where the top piece acts as a lid. That is going to be where we want to tape. So let's open this up and we're going to put some tape on here. Now again, the first layer of tape that I'm putting on is not, well, on mine it's actually doing a job because I did a slight miscut here. To preserve nice foam board for you guys, I used a scrap to build mine, so it's not perfect along this edge. Forgive that, this is the prototype and not as nice. Anyways, so I'm going to use tape to help cover that, but this tape is also going to make it, pardon my horrible tape sounds, I do want a clean edge, so ha. I'm going to put a strip of packing tape along the top. Now you could just do this in two more isolated places, here and here for a small area, and that would work just as good. Again, one of the reasons I'm doing this is because mine is actually not in as good a shape as yours will be because of that extra cut. So I'm going to tape the whole top line here. So this tape is going to go across here. I don't much care for automatic tearing devices. They always do a great job. So I'm going to use good old-fashioned scissors. Cut that out. Try to lay it on as flush as you can. And this piece is going to be rather permanent. And if you want to make it wide and wrap it over the top to give it a little more durability up there, you can. You want to minimize the amount of tape, though, that ends up on the inside of the cube, because that's going to be a reflective surface, and shiny surfaces are not great for photography. They will reflect light you're not hoping for and draw attention away from whatever product you're shooting. So let's stand this thing up. Actually, let's turn this thing and we will put 2 tape tabs on the top here. Now for these tabs, I really would recommend, packing tape is ideal, fold underneath so you have a tab to lift from. So now you have a spot that's not sticky on the back. I'm going to put this about here, and I will build another one of these. Again, fold over the top so you have a place to peel from later. Because this is not intended to keep it sealed shut forever. This is intended as a temporary, almost Velcro-like experience. So this tape will then tape onto the packing tape, that was already there, and keep it closed and stable and sturdy while you're shooting. But when you're done, you should be able to just lift these flaps up and peel it off. Now, I realize that this could get stuck underneath, so you might actually want to put some tape onto the back side here behind these, which I will do now to make sure that you're able to reuse this and it's not just stuck. So let me go ahead and grab a small tab of packing tape behind here. If anyone wants to be extra clever and extra crafty, and if you're handy with an X-Acto knife, you can trim that off right at the edge, or if you want to be a little cheesier, you can just fold it under. X-Acto knives are your friend, though, for this type of project. So let's go ahead and trim that off, and that can be folded in. So now, when in storage, these top tabs can wrap around the back, and again, that's basically the tape the way it is on the roll. It doesn't stick to its own face. You can always peel a tape roll. So we've just kind of turned the edges that we want to temporarily tape into tape rolls effectively. So that now is a finished structure, and from here out it's all about adding the photo elements to make this thing work. I don't know how visible this will be in the video, but I've sliced some of my long pieces of tape in half to save tape. You guys will probably have some white vinyl strips that I'll pre-cut for you, which will be doing the same job. This is going to go along the outside edge Oh, I should mention, I flipped over to the back side, the outside, not the inside where it folds where all the cuts were, and I'm putting a strip of tape around the edge of the openings on all four sides of these so that I can attach and detach tissue paper, because tissue paper is not going to hold up forever, so you may have to replace it sometimes. The good news is it's still a Dollar Tree component, which is wonderful, because I take pride in how cheap I can be. So the last bit for external assembly is to take these squares of cut tissue, and we're going to tape these onto the taped edges on the outside of the box. By taping only onto the other tape, when the tissue inevitably tears, breaks, wears out, you spill coffee on it and it's no longer good, you can take it off. So I'll just be using standard, well, I guess it's just called Scotch tape, isn't it? Scotch tape, invisible tape. And I'm going to try to tape just the corners, but I gave myself the entire edge if needed. You want to get this as smooth as possible. You don't really want wrinkles because it might show up in the backgrounds of photos if you're not careful with your photography. But this is what's going to make it actually work as a light tent. Stretching these tissues out over it is what's going to make the light, it's going to soften the light you're getting and make your photos have less stark shadows and give you a much more evenly lit surface underneath. There we go. So I've got 4 on there, tight as a drum. I can put a few more on the sides if I'm concerned or I'm going to take it outside. But if you want to look at the outside of the same panel, or, oops, well, this is the inside of the panel technically. It looks like that. So when it's all assembled, this is going to help take the light that's coming in from over here and again, spread it out, soften it, and give the whole thing, give your photos on the inside a better take. You also want to be careful, of course, when you tape your top tabs back on. You notice mine are not that long. You want to make sure that they don't go very long so they don't overlap where your tissue paper is, because they'll tear that thing to shreds when you take it off. So I just have to do this 2 more times, and then we'll add the rounded back side to this thing. So now our photo tent has white, whoops, that is already starting to tear because it touched something underneath. That is dangerous. Tissue paper is kind of delicate, guys, in case you didn't know. And I'm kind of clumsy, which you might not know if you haven't met me in person. So tissue paper and me, not exactly simpatico all the time. Okay, so we're going to attach some more tape, which I should have put on earlier. We'll do some more packing tape along the top couple inches of the inside back panel. And that's going to allow us to mount various photo backgrounds on here as you wish. So I'm going to go ahead and, pardon me, just go ahead and give this a nice, hopefully flat, ooh, that wasn't perfect, but it doesn't matter, it's going to be covered. The whole point of this, again, just like in the other initial ones, is this is a glossy background. Background may not be the right word for it. This is a glossy spot that other tape can temporarily adhere to, but peel back off easily. So we're making this as a place that you can peel from. Kind of like making sticker backing. Two's probably enough. So now, I will need to trim down something that you guys will have pre-cut from the lab here. Each of you is getting a strip of Pallon from the screen printing department. Thank you, Sam, even though you probably didn't know I was doing this. It's kind of a cloth paper. And this is just a starter backdrop. You could try other things in the future when we have more lab access. We could try printing various mottled and or gradient backgrounds to attach here, because depending on what you're photographing, you may want a light background and you may want a dark background. As someone who does paint miniature Star Wars stormtroopers from time to time, I can tell you that photographing white on a white background is not necessarily my idea of fun. So again, this is a temporary thing. I'll do some tabs of magic tape up here and up here. And this is meant to hang down below, because when this gets assembled, this is going to be able to come out and give you a smooth background with no back corners. as we put this whole thing together. I don't know how much of that you got to see on this, so I'm going to move the whole camera system down for a minute so you can kind of see what it looks like. So now we have our semi-DIY use-at-home light booth for small object photography, all built. It's got the tissue paper light diffusers. It has a nice Palon sloped back, although that can be swapped out for other colors as necessary. And let's take a look at how this thing works. If you take this thing outside, and I'm not set up to do so right now because it's kind of windy where I live today, and this thing would be a kite until it hit a tree, then it would still be a kite in a tree. Anyways, I'm going to do this indoors with one or two last pieces of show off on how this works. Now first let me say that these things, and I know this because I've worked for some fairly cheap, thrifty companies in the past that didn't want to invest in a lot of expensive lighting or photo tents or anything like that. This can be worked perfectly fine outside on a sunny or cloudy day. Cloudy days work best, but I know this is Southern California. Sunny days, so long as you're not in direct sun. If you could be somewhere where the sun is bouncing off a building, or you're in the shadow on a bright day outside, you can get a clean shot using one of these tents. However, for indoors and after hours photography, when it's dark out and you're stuck using your own lighting, there are a couple options available for you. I did put a link in the class for this. If you are so fortunate as to have enough spare money that you're willing to devote to something like this, not required for the class at all. Just if you're into any sort of hobbies that would like small thing photographies, I would recommend getting a pair of lamps to help light this. But let's actually do this before we get there. Because I never like to talk this. You know what, I'm just going to stop this. Okay, so now we finished building our little DIY at-home photo light booth for photographing miniatures and other small things, like small products. This is it. We have our light diffusing panels on the side made out of tissue paper. We have our Palon backing, though as I've already mentioned, you might want to swap that out for other colors of paper or cloth or other material. And when we have more access to printing, we can print some photo mottled or photo gradient backdrops to drop in there. Lots of things work depending on what you're shooting against and what your style you're trying to achieve is. If you're just going to trace it out anyways later, like in this class, white is just fine. Although, as said, it can be a little challenging to shoot white objects with a white background. I do paint stormtroopers from time to time, and that is a little tricky to photograph. Anyways, one of the advantages of this loose sheet that makes the backdrop is you can put things under it. Let's go ahead and set this thing up for a nice photo here. I have a nice little cardboard box. Everything comes in the mail these days. And I saved some of the more useful sizes. This is going to go underneath. Ooh, you can see that through there a little bit. Whoopsies. You could always put one of those panels you popped out on top as well. So you have a nice even white space underneath. Then I drop in my Stearman M2S Cadet trainer model, and that's right there on top for photography. And we could zoom this thing in, and you can kind of see how it works, although not perfectly because I'm filming inside my kitchen, and the lighting, though good, is not perfect. Outside, this would probably do a bit better, but there is something more we can do inside. Without spending very much money, you guys can set up your own at-home photo rig with pretty good lighting. I have a pair of small photo spotlights that my wife got me one year for my birthday, but they are inexpensive and they come from Amazon. They have LED lights nowadays, and they are rated at daylight, or 5,000 Kelvin color temperature. Putting one of these on either side gives us that lighting we were talking about. It doesn't look like that much yet, but let me zoom in here for you so you can see what that just did on your before and after on that little airplane model. Might actually want to adjust it a little bit more and get the lighting just where we want it. I am being pulled by some extension cords here, and this is a bit of a quick setup. But by playing with these and getting the correct spots, you can see the type of lighting that we're able to achieve using this. And also putting the plane farther back can help a little bit as well. Let's adjust our camera. And we can kind of see where we're headed here. We'll take a photo as well. And don't worry if it still looks a little bit dingy on your first photo. You can lighten it up a little bit in Photoshop by adjusting the white point and your exposures in Photoshop to accommodate for the slightly darkened look. Now, a perfectly viable alternative to the purpose-built spotlights is the way I started out. It's a thrift store desk lamp. You get an old desk lamp from a thrift shop, one of the ones with the craning neck that you can point whichever direction you want. Think Pixar, really. Or anything, it doesn't matter how ugly it is, so long as you have the ability to aim a light bulb. And then you can get, for very cheap these days, daylight colored light bulbs at your local Home Despot, or whichever home improvement store you want to go to, or if you want to buy them online. They're commonly available and inexpensive. And by getting a full spectrum light bulb, which is those daylight ones, the proper color temperature, you will get accurate colors in your photographs all at home, all for not very much money. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope this is a useful product for you guys, and I hope you get a lot of enjoyment out of it, and show me what you shoot on Instagram as well as for class. Anyways, have fun. Bye. Oh, and one last thing about the lamps. If you don't get LED lamps, or the light bulbs you get are incandescent, be careful and keep them a little bit a ways away. Let me pick one up and demonstrate the distance I'm talking about. If you put them right up against here, which you can get away with some of the LED lamps as they don't generate heat, that's fine. But if you have an incandescent bulb in the front of one of these, or in a desk lamp, move it back a little farther. It is possible to set the tissue paper on fire if you heat it up too much, especially if halogen bulbs get involved, because they heat up a lot. All right, that's it for me now. Thank you. Bye.